Hello everybody and welcome back to Marksman Radio. I am Chris. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. Today I'm going to be talking about the topic that is sort of on everybody's mind right now. That is the powder keg that has ignited in every major city in our country right now. The protests and the riots that seem to be revolving around the untimely and gruesome passing of George Floyd, a man who was killed by a police officer a week or two ago. I want to use this to sort of springboard to talk about the three basic groups of people that I'm sort of noticing exist in this situation. Number one is the angry, number two are the selfish, and number three is the police or the system, if you will, and sort of the clashing there. Now, I am going to be staying away from any type of racial observations or talks from that standpoint, as I don't have the expertise nor the experience to really talk on that confidently. But what I will be talking about is sort of my observations of the politics of this. As well as I do want to draw a loose correlation at the end to the gun community as a whole, as I am in the gun community and I tend to do that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into that. So I want to start off by talking about the angry. What has happened in this country, and as many of you know, there is a man, George Floyd, who was killed by a police officer. The police officer showed lack of restraint, lack of training. We don't know whether or not his motivations were racial. To my knowledge, he hasn't come out and confess that, but maybe we'll get evidence suggesting that that is the case during a trial. He has been arrested for murder 3, I believe. So I can't make that assertion yet until those points have been sort of uncovered and become public. But maybe we'll talk about that moving forward. But what we do know just by seeing the video is he acted incredibly poorly and not what we would expect of our uniformed officers in this country. Now, of course, what that has done is yet again sparked up anger towards a racial divide in this country, or the statement that America is inherently and systematically racist towards ethnic minorities in this country. The fact of the matter is, what I purely believe in is people who are angry in this country have a right to assemble and they have a right to protest. And I think that those people's voices should be heard so long as they're doing it peacefully and so long as they're not creating new victims out of their angst and their ire over what is happening. Now, we are seeing a lot of leaders in the Black community especially coming forward and urging their community members and leaders to gather peacefully to better push forward their perspectives and their points and their anger and the points that they want to make, because those points are going to be better received and taken in by people outside of their groups and communities who would want to otherwise, listen to what they have to say, to take to heart what their anger is and their criticism is of the system that we live in the United States, and to hopefully hear those points addressed towards people outside their community, which is ultimately who they want to address, to change the hearts and minds, to come together as a community to make the changes that we need to make. Ultimately, hopefully we can all agree George Floyd, before anything else, is an American, and I, as an American, uphold the life and the liberty, the pursuit of happiness of all of my neighbors and everybody else living in this country. And I want nobody to die in a very gruesome and unnecessary fashion, such as George Floyd. And I'm willing to listen to the people who are taking the time to organize protests against what happened, and I think that that's very important. Now, unfortunately, what's happened is we have those voices being drowned out by people who are selfish, and that's the second group of people. People who have turned this into an opportunity to loot, to riot, to destroy. And these people, their focus is only to burn the world down. They're angry. Of course, you can be angry, but the anger doesn't always have to turn to violence. And of course, the first group of people who are peacefully protesting, they're angry, and that anger is more powerful when it's something that I can listen to and appreciate and maybe even join, to whatever cause that's being created out of that anger. But when it turns to violence, I shut off and I stop listening. It makes people mad at you. It loses the message of the people who are peaceful, and all that noise creates anger and animosity towards you. And it creates anger and animosity towards the people who are peacefully protesting, because of course, the news media coverage is only showing that aspect of things. If it bleeds, it leads. The news is going to show the people who are burning things down and breaking into buildings, not the people who are holding signs and peacefully protesting. You, the rioters, the looters, the selfish, you're not only stealing from your community, you're not stealing from those businesses and those business owners. You're stealing the platform. You're stealing this opportunity when the whole world is watching. George Floyd died and everybody turned to watch what message can be made from this, what change can be made from this, and that platform is being stolen by you for your narcissistic and your just selfish tendencies, and it's being taken away from the people, the members of the Black community or ethnic minority groups who are trying to create change and use this as a platform to get peaceful resolve. And you're taking that, and I think that's despicable. And so I have no remorse for police shooting tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper bombs, whatever. I have no remorse. And I have no remorse for people who are hurt by store owners and shop owners who are defending their property. They have every right to defend their lives, their own pursuit of happiness, just like George Floyd did. You're taking that away as well. Now, the third group of people would be the police, and the sort of, in this case, is the focal point and the sort of the central, the eye of the storm, and sort of where all of this anger and angst is directed. I want to talk about that, and this, I think, is the most important thing to sort of discuss, because this is ultimately the thing that people who are angry right now want to change. And I think, what are some of the best ways that can change what is happening? I'm going to illustrate this point by using a fake and fictitious police officer. We're going to call him Officer Bill. Officer Bill is educated, he's smart, does not have a racist bone in his body. Wants to go to work every day to do the best he can to serve people of all walks of life, and wants to do it well and effectively. He wants to take in a paycheck, and most importantly, he wants to go home to his family at night, just like all of us do. Now, Officer Bill goes to work, and he's every day being told he's a racist, he's a white supremacist. And by the way, us in the gun community, we get this all the time too, and it really wears down on your psyche. You're a neo-Nazi, you're an authoritarian, you're a jackboot thug, you're a baby killer, you're whatever. You're told this because, and I see these sort of verbal assaults pelted at police officers all the time. Officer Bill, he's got a college degree, he's got great job references, he's had a wonderful performance, great reputation with his colleagues and people within the community. Maybe he's served, answered phone calls to people who are business owners and stuff like that. And Officer Bill decides, not only am I tired of all the stones being thrown at me, being called what I'm not, but I'm also tired of hearing like the 2 police officers killed in their police car in New York as they were just sitting there in their car. Or the 2 police officers, this was several years ago, who were killed in Dallas by a man who hated the police. If I'm Officer Bill, afraid now for his life just because he puts on a blue uniform and a badge every day, he's never done anything that nobody deserved in terms of an arrest or being pulled over. What is he going to do? He's got options. He can put in for a private security job. Officer Bill, the good cop, decides, this isn't worth it anymore. My family's tired of seeing police officers shot on TV. They're wondering if I'm going to come home every night. He's going to go find another job. What is going to happen? What job pool availability is left for police departments to draw from? People who have other opportunities, it's almost getting to the point where police officers, not all of them, I'm sure there's a lot of police officers who are career long. I'm talking about new hires right now. A lot of them are probably getting to the point where they don't have a lot of other options, because really in this case, I can't imagine why you would want to be a police officer with the risk of somebody walking up and shooting you just because you're a police officer. And that's what we're seeing more and more of. As we get further on down this cycle, is it going to become worse and worse? Are all the good cops, the really well-trained, likable, good people, are they going to leave the police force and go on to do other things? I wouldn't blame them if they did. Finally, I want to conclude this video by drawing a parallel here between the gun community and what is going on now. I, of course, believe in the right to keep and bear arms. I agree with the right to peaceful protest, peaceful assembly. I agree with the right for citizens to be able to move freely through this country, as long as they are following the laws to not be harassed or abused by other citizens or police or the government. I know gun owners aren't all one color and all one religion, but I will say that we are a group of people who are constantly stigmatized as being belligerent, racist, angry. With that, I want to turn to the peaceful protests that Second Amendment advocates had in Virginia when Northam was talking about pushing through all those laws. You had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people turn up, a lot of them carrying guns, some not, but of course these were all gun owners. CNN and other media outlets had talked about the FBI and the police ramping up security because they were afraid it was going to be used as a terrorist and violent attack on the Capitol, its politicians. Of course, the protests ended up being 100% peaceful. There wasn't a canister of tear gas fired, a rubber bullet fired. no live ammunition fired at the police, nobody assaulted, and nobody hurt. And that resulted in the massive, overwhelming turnout of people over the course of many months turned out in a lot of that legislation being shelved till a later date. I know it wasn't shot down entirely, but I think the peaceful protest and assembly of those Second Amendment proponents turned out to be a positive thing. As much as the media tried to turn out everybody into an evil, hateful, racist, or whatever group of people, it ended up being peaceful, and I think got a lot of the attention and notice from other people in other communities who are not necessarily into gun rights, or maybe didn't care one way or the other. The thing that I'm happy about is that that message was not drowned out by other people in the community using it as an opportunity to shoot at police officers or, attack politicians or anything like that, or to make the narrative true. Well, that's really all I have to say about that. Capping this off, I guess what bothers me the most about all of this is, we as a society, we love the victim. So in this case, let's look at the victims and not forget who the victims are. The business owners that are having their stores looted and broken into, those are Americans. The businesses that they own are American small businesses. The buildings that are burning down are American buildings. George Floyd was an American. We're all in all of this together. And again, if we're going to focus on anything, let's focus on the things that matter and not let one victim turn into more victims and more victims and more victims in this whole situation before it all burns out. And whether that's business owners being beat up, other protesters being shot, or police officers. I mean, none of it's good. And I'm sure George Floyd would not have wanted any of it. I can't put words in his mouth, but I like to believe that that's the case. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you there. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks so much for stopping by and listening to this video, and I'll see you next week.